You didn't yell, you didn't threaten, you didn't even explain yourself. You just stopped giving them air. And here's what nobody tells you about cutting off the oxygen supply to something. It doesn't explode, it doesn't crash loudly. It just slowly, quietly suffocates. And right now, that group that organized against you, that gathered their people and whispered and plotted and thought they had you completely figured out, they are gasping. They are looking around at each other, trying to understand why the whole thing is falling apart, why the energy is gone, why nothing they do is landing anymore, why their words, which used to cut so deep, are just bouncing off. And the answer is so simple, it's almost poetic. You stopped feeding it. Your calm, not your anger, not your revenge, not your carefully planned response. Your calm is the thing that is dismantling them from the inside out. Your silence is so louder than every single word they've ever said about you. And I need you to understand what's actually happening right now, because it is bigger than you think. And it started the moment you decided to just breathe, just exist, just be exactly, unapologetically, completely yourself. That was the move. That was the whole move. And they never saw it coming. There is something I want you to sit with for a second. Think about the last time you were in a room or in a group chat or a situation and you felt that shift, that moment where you realized you were the target. Maybe it happened gradually, maybe one day someone's tone changed almost imperceptibly. Maybe you started noticing that certain people stopped including you in things, or started including too many people in conversations that were clearly, unmistakably about you. And you felt it in your body, of course, before you could name it. Your body knows. And that tight thing in your chest when a specific name came up on your phone, the hyper-awareness when you walked into certain spaces, and that low-level scan you were doing constantly, reading the room, reading faces, trying to figure out who was actually with you and who was performing being with you. And that exhausting, low-grade anxiety of knowing something was happening, but not being able to see all of it yet. The worst part wasn't the situation itself. It was what it did to you on the inside. The way it started making you question yourself. Maybe you wonder if maybe you were the problem, if you were too sensitive, if you were imagining it, if you somehow brought it on yourself. That second guessing, that's not weakness. That's what it feels like to be genuinely decent person trying to make sense of behavior that genuinely doesn't make sense. You were never the problem. You were never the problem. I need you to hear that clearly. Here is what was actually happening while you were doing all that self-examination. While you were lying awake at 3 a.m, running through conversations, wondering, trying to figure out what is happening. wondering what you said wrong, wondering if you could fix it, wondering if you should reach out or pull back. They were getting comfortable. Yes, they were talking about you, taking your silence as agreement, your patience as submission, your refusal to create public drama as proof that you wouldn't fight back. They looked at you and they saw something safe to aim at. Someone who would absorb it, someone who wouldn't blow everything up. And so they kept going. They recruited more people, they shared screenshots, they framed stories. They built a whole architecture of distortion around your name, brick by careful brick. And they genuinely believed. Yes, they believed. This is the part that gets me. They genuinely believed they were winning. They thought the distance you were keeping was retreat. They thought the quiet you were living in it was defeat. They saw your gentleness as an opening, a gap in the armor, a place to push. They completely, fundamentally, disastrously misread you. Because here's the thing about kindness that operates from a real place. It doesn't look like strength to people who've never actually had it. Think about that. It looks like naivety. It looks like someone who doesn't know how the game works. And that misreading, that was their fatal arrow. Because here's the thing about someone who has been through enough. And you have been through enough. They stop needing to react. Not because they don't feel it. You felt every single thing, every comment, every exclusion, every moment of deliberate coldness. You felt it all. But there comes a point where you've been pushed so many times that something shifts deep in your nervous system, and you stop engaging from a place of hurt and you start existing from a place of truth. And you know that the truth doesn't need to defend itself. Truth doesn't need. Think about a lighthouse, a real one, out of the rocks. It doesn't move, it doesn't argue with the ships, it doesn't go sailing out into the dark water to make it its case. It just stands there and shines. And every hollow, rotten vessel that tries to navigate around it, every ghost ship built on fog and noise and collective ego, eventually wrecks itself on the rocks of that unmoving light. That's not poetry. That's what happened. That is literally what happened with this group. You were the lighthouse. They were the fleet that thought their numbers made them powerful, and they sailed straight into their own destruction because they couldn't understand something that simply stands and shines. Let me get specific, because this is where it gets wild. Think about the moment things started shifting. Yes, that moment. Maybe it was subtle at first. One of them said something publicly and it didn't land the way it used to. Maybe they expected you to react and you didn't. And suddenly the whole dynamic felt off, like a comedian who lost the room and can't figure out why. Or maybe someone from the group reached out to you out of nowhere like nothing happened, with that soft, careful, almost apologetic energy. Testing the waters. Yeah, you feel it, testing the waters. Seeing if the door was still open. And something in you just didn't respond the way you would have 6 months ago. Not because you were being calculated or cold, no, but because something in you had genuinely moved on. You'd processed it. You'd put it down. You'd stopped carrying weight that was never yours to carry. And they could feel it. Yes, that feeling they got when you didn't light up for them the way you used to. That slight panic underneath their casual message. That's the oxygen running out. That's the moment they realized the thing they'd built. The narrative, the group identity, the shared target was starting to lose its fuel source because they needed you affected. They needed you reactive. They needed you visibly hurt or visibly angry so they could keep pointing at you and saying, see what they are like. And when you stopped giving them that, when your life just kept moving, when you kept showing up and being exactly who you are, they had nothing. The engine died. And this is where the group dynamic started eating itself alive, which is the part nobody warned you was coming. You see, the only thing holding that particular group together was a shared story about you. Take away the story, and suddenly these people are just people who actually don't have that much in common. People who were low-key comparing with each other all along. People who had been talking about each other in the same room where they talked about you. They just hadn't noticed because they had a common focus. The moment that focus dissolved, they had to turn and actually look at each other. And what they saw wasn't loyalty. What they saw wasn't a real foundation. What they saw was a group of people who'd bonded over something ugly and now had to figure out who they were without it. Who they were without it, without you. Someone said too much to the wrong person. Someone got tired of holding up a version of events that's getting harder and harder to maintain. That group of people started cracking. Old resentments that had been papered over with shared gossip started bubbling back up. This is the boomerang effect in real time. Not some abstract cosmic concept, but the very specific, very predictable way that energy built on tearing someone else down eventually has nowhere left to go but inward. And you didn't plant anything. You didn't scheme. You didn't even need to know it was happening. You just removed yourself from the equation and let the math work itself out. The math always works itself out. Now, here is what I really need you to hear, because there might be a part of you right now that feels genuinely strange about all this. And I know this sounds almost absurd, almost guilty. Like maybe you should have handled it differently, said something sooner, tried harder to smooth things over, being the bigger person in a way that somehow fixed it instead of just survived it. I need you to stop that thought right there, because what you are actually feeling in those moments isn't guilt. No, it's not. It's the old programming. It's every time someone made you feel like keeping the peace was your job specifically, like your discomfort was the admission price for being allowed in certain people's lives. Like your needs were always the ones that could wait. That wasn't peace you were keeping. That was yourself. You were shrinking. Situation by situation. You had learned to take up less space, and somewhere along the way, without maybe even fully deciding to, you stopped. You started just being your actual size. And for a group that depended entirely on you being small, that alone, just that, was an act of complete structural devastation. Think about what your presence actually was in that space. Just you, existing fully, speaking your truth naturally, not adjusting your frequency to make certain people comfortable, not editing yourself in real time to manage their reactions. That kind of authentic presence is a mirror. And they hated the mirror, you know that. Not because you were doing anything aggressive, but because when someone is genuinely, quietly, unperformatively themselves, it creates a specific kind of discomfort in people who are performing. It's like a frequency mismatch. The whole system runs on performance, on image management, on the careful construction of how things appear. And you just were not doing that. They couldn't control your narrative. They couldn't predict your responses. They couldn't make you smaller with their words because the words stopped reaching the real you. And when you can't control someone, when you genuinely can't touch them, that's when fear turns into obsession, and obsession turns into chaos. You became the thing they couldn't manage. And the whole structure started unraveling around that single impossible fact. Here is what's happening right now in real time, whether you can fully see it yet or not. Some of them are experiencing something they have probably never felt before. The specific disorienting discomfort of having aimed everything at someone and missed completely. Confused? Of having organized and recruited and deployed all of it. And then watched the target not just survive, but somehow become more themselves in the process. That doesn't compute for people who operate the way they operate. In their model of the world, pressure breaks people. Numbers win. Public perception shapes reality. Collective force overwhelms the individuals. And none of it worked. And they don't have a framework for why. So they are doing what people do when they can't explain something. They are making up stories, calling you calculated, calling you manipulative, saying you must have had some angle, some plan, some secret advantage. Because the alternative, that you simply lived your life with integrity. And that alone was enough to bring the whole thing down. That alternative is too destabilizing to sit with. So let them tell the story. It doesn't touch you. Because it was never about what they said. It was about what you are. And what you are doesn't change based on their interpretation of it. You've been sensing something lately, haven't you? Yes, something different in the atmosphere around you. Like a pressure that's been there so long, you forgot it wasn't normal. And it's lifting. Not dramatically, not all at once. Just this gradual easing, like a sound of the background getting quieter and quieter until one day you realize you haven't heard it in a while. People who used to make you tense when their name came up on your phone. You notice you are not tensing anymore. Things you used to brace for just don't carry the same charge. Your body is starting to remember what it felt like before all of this. That's not you being naive or letting your guard down too soon. That's your system finally registering what's actually true. The threat has changed shape. The group organized around dismantling you is now organized around surviving each other. The energy that was pointed at you has turned inward, and you are standing in a space that maybe for the first time in a long time actually feels like yours again. And some of them are going to come back around. I want to say that. I want to be direct with you about this because you need to be ready when it happens. They are not going to come back with real apologies. They are going to come back sideways with a casual message, a friendly comment, some innocent seeming question that gives them total plausible deniability, acting like time is an eraser, like enough weeks passing means the whole thing just becomes background noise. And I need you to notice how your body responds. Your body knows when that happens, not your mind. Your mind can be reasoned with, convinced, talked into giving another chance. Your body knows. Your body has been tracking all of this from the very beginning, before your mind had words for it. If something in you goes flat and quiet when they reach out, that low, certain stillness that isn't anger, just clarity, that's information. That's not bitterness. That's wisdom you earned. Because here is the real victory. Not that they are scrambling, not that their group is fracturing, not that the people who tried to make you small are now watching you stand taller than you ever did when you were trying to manage their comfort. The real victory is something quieter than all of that. It's the morning you wake up and your first thought isn't about them. It's the conversation where your full voice shows up without you monitoring it in real time. It's the moment you catch yourself laughing genuinely in a space where you used to walk in holding your breath. That's the oxygen they thought they could cut off from you. Your realness, your presence, your actual voice in the room. Your right to take up space without apologizing for it. And it's back. It's back. It's completely, fully, irreversibly back. You cut off their oxygen supply the day you stopped pretending, the day you stopped making yourself smaller to fit inside their story about who you were supposed to be. The day your calm became your answer, your silence became your statement, and your continued existence, full, unedited, genuinely yourself, became the most devastating response you could have possibly given. You didn't destroy them. No. You just stopped letting them destroy you. There is a difference. And it turns out, for a group built entirely on the project of diminishing you, those two things were exactly the same, actually. You were never the harmless one. No. You were the lighthouse they couldn't move, the frequency they couldn't match, the presence they couldn't control. And the moment they stopped being able to aim at you, they had nothing left to hold them together. Keep breathing, keep standing exactly where you are, keep being exactly this. What's coming for you now? The clarity, the right people, the spaces where you can finally take up your full amount of room without anyone making you feel like it's too much. None of that can reach you while you are still contorted, trying to manage their perception of you. You already stopped doing that. You are already through the hardest part. And you are walking into something wider and more genuinely yours than anything you had before. Not in spite of what happened. Because of it. Because you found out in the most real, undeniable, lived was possible. That your calm is the most powerful thing about you. Your silence was louder than their chaos. And nothing they threw at it even left a mark.